Hello, welcome back to the Inside Out podcast. It has a name now. I'm Natalie Pantaleo. I'm here with my good friend, Michael Caudo.
Hey, Nat.
Hi, I'm so good to see
Thanks
you.
for having
We
me.
have so much to talk about that I don't know if we're going to get it in 20 minutes, but we're going to try. We're going to give it a shot.
We could always do part two.
That's right. That's right. We're going to do a part two. So I like to give the audience a little like how I connect or how I know the guests on my show. I'm not going to know it all, but you and we know each other pretty
A
well.
little bit of history.
Right.
Yeah.
Not to mention that we grew up about 10 houses from each other, which is,
we
this
did.
is almost an impossibility when you grow up in South Philadelphia, but didn't meet each other until about 15 years ago, right?
Very true.
Yes. Yeah. So we have a mutual friend who had a restaurant, and we'll give a plug to Limonaldi at Paradiso. And I'm at the bar talking about my book, and Mike said, "Excuse me, I can't help but overhear. Did you say you're writing a book?" "I'm writing a book." And after that, the whole thing was just so intertwined and interconnected. I don't even know where it begins or ends.
Been on quite a few adventures since that. This being the latest,
Right.
but not the last.
Right. Yes, exactly. So Mike is a brilliant, brilliant, beautiful writer. I mean it. Everything is so, you feel the words, and maybe if I don't even think if I didn't know you, I would have any different reaction to your writing.
Hey.
And the fact that it's written in our neighborhood, partly the storyline, partly in South Philadelphia, partly in Fort Lauderdale, it's so familiar. There's so many nuances, and just even though our books are completely different genres, completely different writing styles, there are things that show up in both of our books, no surprise. And both of our books came out yeah. Both our books came out around the same time. Mike now has two. I don't know how he does it because he's also an attorney. The first was Return of the Prodigal, and the second was Revenge of the Prodigal.
Yes.
And so I like to talk about
Revenge.
There we go. I am so curious, and I think I get a lot of these questions. You may too, when you do book signings. People want to know what's true, what inspired you, what kind of things. And Mike and I have talked so much about writing. We both have referenced Stephen King and his memoir on writing, and he talks about
great book for any writer. Stephen King on writing, part memoir, part instructional craft book,
right,
and just written in a really approachable style.
Yes. And so he says, and I think this is true, you probably agree, that even like any fiction, something comes from some kind of experience. It's that we don't just pull it out of the ether, although there might be some sci-fi stuff that some creative person does pull out of the ether.
Even that.
Even that's
if you're the Space Marine novels are very big, and rest assured, they all come from there's some basis.
Yeah, so Stephen King says, like the scene in Carrie where she's locked in a closet, her mother locks her in a closet. He had an experience, maybe it wasn't exactly, intended to inspire that scene, but it was somewhere in his subconscious that as a child, a babysitter locked him in a closet. So Mike and I have had a lot of talks about this, about what inspires or what things are real things. And you said something that I thought was really profound about pain, about when you're writing, like what inspires?
On the topic of what inspires you, and I truth is the touchstone. So it doesn't necessarily have to be factually true, but if there's artifice, or if you're being intentionally cute, it's never going to get across to the reader, and the reader's going to suss it out. So frankly, I find myself that if I'm ever calling upon something that's painful or even embarrassing, it may be difficult to write through, but rest assured, it's true and it's going to resonate. So yeah, I've mentioned that in some of my social media postings that you start, your whole book doesn't have to be this way, but if you start with pain, chances are it's going to be truthful.
Right.
And with respect to influences and works being autobiographical, so in some sense everything's autobiographical to an extent. I think the magic is in the twist.
Yeah.
The magic is in taking one or more events that you either happen to you or you observe from a distance, and then the beauty of fiction is you could package that however you like. and you could combine, and you could make a person a composite of various characters. So I'm so tickled that readers will ask me, "Oh, hey, this character, I think I know who." Trust me, you don't. I mean, please have at
We
it.
were exact opposites when it comes to my book and that, but a little
And
bit.
oddly enough, the protagonist in my story, people will frequently associate that with me, so to speak. And in the back of my head, sometimes I'm like, I kind of identify more with his dead father, who's never alive during the book, but kind of
Right.
his presence is being felt. And of course, my son and my family are at times, influences where I'm thinking of them. Uh, Another, speaking of both Stephen King, it's a he quoted it, but I forget who the original author was. That uh, no no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader.
Yeah.
No surprise
So
in the writer,
yeah.
no surprise in the reader. And on the topic of outlining versus um, um, pantsing, or writing it by the seat of your pants, so to speak, I like to think I fall in the category of not necessarily plotting everything out. I certainly don't write out an extensive outline because I want to be surprised. I want to get that little tingle up my spine.
Like a little insight into the process.
I want to finish that chapter and say, "Hey, that's not where I thought I was going," and boy, if that resonates with you, it's going to resonate with the reader,
Right.
or at least it should. So yeah,
Yeah, you brought it full circle because I was going to say that you've also said that if it's not authentic, if it's not coming from an authentic place, whether it was real or conjured or put together, it's not going to land authentically with a reader, right?
And that's all I really meant about. I mean, your whole entire novel or work doesn't have to be about pain, but if you're onto something and you're about to write it and you're like, I don't know if I want to go there, you should probably go there.
Yeah, right. My publisher coaxed me on that too. The most uncomfortable things. It's very vulnerable. How vulnerable do you feel putting your thoughts and feelings out there for everybody to consume?
I mean, the payoff is, people, and it's happened to you, will approach you and say, "Hey, this really made me feel a certain kind of way." And I know you and I both subscribe to, it's one reader at a time. If you reached one person, that's a success.
Yes.
And just build on that.
Right.
Yeah, nothing makes me happier than that. I had someone come to me and tell me that they read a particular passage in my book and it made them cry. I was floored.
Right.
And this is not someone that I really, knew.
Touched emotionally or something like that. It was surprising.
Yeah, look, writing's lonely.
Yeah.
So we take every little bit of encouragement we can get.
Yeah. One of the things that was the most put me in a very vulnerable spot, as you know, with my book, is that my publisher, Lindsay Deerking, Waken Press, give a little plug, she insisted that I put based on a true story on my book. And I was so nervous about doing that because my book is fictionalized. And the characters, even though they were inspired by people, they are an amalgam of other experiences that I created or added, like you said earlier. But there's one character that was completely made up out of the clear blue in my book, and people swear it's a certain person, and I say, nope, it's not.
Sounds to me like you did something right.
Yeah, right? Maybe, because, me, literally an open book, and, well, anyway.
Look, you can't completely divorce yourself from your life experiences, nor should you.
Right.
What else, what other well do you have to draw from?
Right.
So that's on that topic, I'm actually advising someone right now who is in a process of trying to write their work, and they are wrestling with that very same issue. And I suggested that they read your book, and I'm out.
Thanks. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
because I thought that you navigated that quite deftly.
And all the people that think they're in it or not in it, most of the people are so excited about it. I only had one person that was a little mad, but we got past that. And I convinced that person that in that case, it actually wasn't. It was a combination of several different characters in my mind.
I like to be able to pick up a novel and read it, and if it's Don Winslow writing about what's going on up in his past in Rhode Island and that area, or George Pelecanos writing about. These are guys that write crime and thriller fiction. Uh, George Pelecanos writing about the Washington D.C. Baltimore area, and so he'll throw names of names of streets out or various locations. And while I may not have a direct connection, I find myself getting into the groove of it, and I feel like I'm there.
Right.
And that's the whole idea. So, we at least for my book, I mean, I certainly don't want it to be limited parochially to just people who grew up in the area. I'd like you to be able to pick it up if you live in Europe, and get a little slice of our very rich heritage.
I definitely think your books do that. Anybody can pick them up anywhere and relate to, where they're from. They're especially meaningful to me because of where we're from. But I think for sure, no doubt, and everybody by and far, all the reviews, he's an excellent writer. And the book is great. And there's so many story twists and plots and beautiful, and it's got everything in it. Although the genre is thriller, crime thriller.
You could tell me if you cried in that.
Well, there were parts that really were meaningful to me, that really choked me up.
There are parts of writing in that
Right.
made me that way.
But there were times when I was reading I actually got to read, he let me have a sneak peek, so I actually got to read the manuscript before the published book came out.
That's right.
And I remember I was in Las Vegas and I didn't want to leave the room and put the book down. But there were so many times I wanted to call you during reading the book, because it was so the words were so moving. You do have a gift, you really do.
Well, let's keep it going and encourage others. I mean, that's.
And speaking of that, we kind of tried to do just that. So, Philadelphia's always been in the shadows of New York, at least when growing up. I think it's way more on the map these days. There's so much more about Philadelphia and actually a lot of New Yorkers moved here. But when we were growing up, we were always in the shadows of New York. So like the whole Rocky metaphor, the whole underdog, dark horse theme of Philadelphia, there was so much talent that comes out of this city. I mean, Mike is also like an unofficial R&B expert. And Philadelphia has produced unbelievable musicians, writers, actors, right? So we wanted to showcase Philly talent. And right after our books were published 2 years ago, we were brainstorming, like, how could we bring Philly talent, highlight it, bring it to the stage in some way? And we came up with this idea. Mike actually named it Book to Stage, where we featured 4 Philadelphia authors and we brought them to life on actual theater, a little immersive theater in South Philly called Theater Exile, with Philadelphia actors, right? And Mike was responsible for the soundtrack or the playlist, the score of our production.
It was just really nice to get authors up on stage reading a little bit from their book, and then fading away and having the actors act out.
That was the nuance of
the balance of the scene, which in many ways, you think about the writing of a book or the reading of a book, it's like a movie projector is going off inside of your brain. At least it does for me. Everywhere I walk, I see things, and I'm
watching it as a movie.
I feel like I'm directing a movie. And this was a step in that direction of kind of pulling the curtain aside, so to speak, and having the scenes acted out.
Yeah.
It was a real treat, and I'm sure we'll get to do it again soon.
Yeah, it was great, and that was the nuance. So we had a small set. We didn't have the budget to build a set. We were ordering furniture from Amazon.com. They're putting it together on the set, but the lights went down on one side as the reader read a passage that teed up a scene. The nuance of it, or what I thought was our novel idea on this, was have the author get up and read a passage that teed up a scene, and as the lights went down in our low budget production, that really landed well though. As the lights went down on
Wasn't so low budget.
No, I know, right? Because we beat the author. The lights went up on the actors, and they did the following scene. But Mike, what do you say? We did every aspect of the production of that. It was a real learning.
It was a learning experience, and it was a lot of fun. And hey, look, there were a lot of family and friends there, but the audience really enjoyed it.
It sold out 2 nights.
Yeah, it did.
And I got to tell you, I don't know about you, but the most thrilling and rewarding part of that entire experience of the show was called Book to Stage. It was at Theater Exile. when you're in the wings waiting for your cue to go on stage, you're lined up, you have to be really silent because the audience could acoustically hear everything that's going on. It's pitch darkness. And just be standing there and hear your work or someone in our production's work, had the audience erupting into applause and laughter,
Right.
organic, spontaneous. There was
Yes.
nothing like that in the world to me.
Yeah, it
To hear
was very rewarding, especially for the other people who participated.
Yeah.
And everybody really gave their heart and soul into it. We had a lot of fun at rehearsals.
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm sure we'll get to do it again.
Yeah, I know. It was
So
great.
stay tuned. Look for that book
Yeah.
to stage.
Right.
And if you're a local author and you're interested, reach out to Nat,
Yeah.
and we could help you get up on stage and
That's right.
talk about your work.
Right. I mean, the experiences, we can have a podcast just on these, reliving the experiences of that show. Like,
Yeah.
what was
Maybe
the
we
biggest surprise for you?
Biggest surprise was the
Aside from the cost.
no, it wasn't so bad. I mean, the real talent that came through with the actors, number one,
Right.
and number two, I'll speak from that. During the rehearsals, both of us participated in doing some light acting, and we both ended up doing okay. And kind of having fun and enjoying it.
Speaking of this prop,
Oh,
we're a
forgot all
prop.
about that.
So the whole essence of his book is based on what you tell.
I can, sure. So, by the way, we're here. It's March 19th. Yesterday, March 18th, it marks 35 years to the date of the art heist at the Gardner Museum, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. Beautiful, beautiful museum, private museum owned by Isabella Stewart Gardner. And on St. Patrick's Day night into the early hours of March 18th, two men dressed as police officers gained entry to the museum and cut a number of paintings out of their frames and took some other items as well. A Vermeer, a Manet, and a few Rembrandts, one of which is right here, Storm on the Sea of Galilee, which was Rembrandt's only seascape. And it's been missing now for 35 years. People are heartbroken about it, especially the museum and the people who enjoyed looking at it. So that's the premise, or at least the starting point for the novels, is this theft, its real life connection to Philadelphia. Pretty much everyone agrees that at some point in time, as at least some of the paintings passed through Philadelphia, I tend to subscribe to the theory that at least one of them is still here.
And now those parts of the book are based on fact.
They're fact.
That's
That all occurred,
right.
And they've chased down every lead imaginable. Anthony Amore is the chief investigator at the Gardner Museum, and he's been very friendly and supportive, and just a great person. So it's a $10 million reward if you happen to know where any of these items are. Call Anthony. The statute of limitations has passed, so collect your money. I'll only take 10%.
So to quote Mike, drama's all around us. And like you said, I feel exactly the same. I walk through life like I watch filming a movie or directing a movie or watching it's going to be in a movie. And just this morning alone, I had experiences that could end up sometime or should end up in a movie.
3 Days of the Condor, 6 Days of the Condor. One was the title of the movie, one was the title of the book. I forget which was which. 6 Days of the Condor was the book written by James Grady. And that's the premise was a CIA facility in Washington. But the way he and many other writers get an idea, this is a building and a door that he walked past every day is rather innocuous. But the big question a writer should always be asking themselves is, what if? What if behind that door, this was a clandestine CIA facility? What if that innocent looking guy on the corner is really such and such?
Yeah.
And I think if it's fun writing that way, and at least for me, writing thrillers, that if I'm ever stuck, I'll find myself calling on that what if, what if this character did this or that, or this happened to them, forces act upon them. So,
And in a very literal sense. You know what building in Philly did that for me? And I used to write a story in that Maglia Furs. Do you remember that on the?
Yes, absolutely, on Broad Street.
Now somebody bought it, but for years there were these 1950s mannequins still in the window.
Yeah.
And I used to wonder what happened. Why did it close? Why isn't somebody opening?
Still remember the sign. It was kind of like a bluish
Yeah.
sign outside.
Little Art Deco to it maybe or something. I don't know. And this like design of the sign now.
Yep.
I don't know, but that building did that for me.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. So
For sure.
you know, Mike, I don't know if you want to read a couple lines from your book. If you want to, you can circle back to like what we were saying about how the feeling of a feeling of a real experience could come through in a fictional way.
Sure. Yeah, you had asked me to maybe pick a representative
Right.
short chapter that that kind of illustrates how those observation translate into the written word.
Right.
So setting the scene, there is a rather eccentric painter who is on the spectrum, and he is a character in the books, and his name is Virgil. And in this scene, it takes place in Rittenhouse Square. Let me just read it. I'm giving it away.
See, he's back on stage now.
Yeah. So the title of the chapter is chiaroscuro, and that's an Italian name for the technique employed by Rembrandt and also by Vermeer and Caravaggio that highlights the complement of light and shadow. And that's what that means. So it takes place in Rittenhouse Square, fictionally, on April 25th of 2019. Hope you enjoy. Virgil set up his easel and focused his attention on the sidewalk tables that lined the square. Through the trees, the sun's angle created a dapple effect that caused his brain to fire in that magical sequence that God had ordained. Virgil worked feverishly, racing the clouds to capture the interplay between light and dark. He was employing the chiaroscuro technique perfected by Caravaggio and Rembrandt. Virgil's awkwardness faded as he moved with the grace and economy of a ballet dancer. A secret drama played out as Virgil focused on the woman seated alone at a table. He imagined her as Titian's Venus of Urbino. His subject was bathed in sunlight, while the area around her remained in shadow. Virgil burned the image in his mind, but moved swiftly to capture her face before the clouds moved in. He framed the scene in a border of sakura pink. Angie ordered a Negroni and checked her lipstick in her phone. The cherry blossoms were in full bloom in the park, and a few errant petals fell upon her table. She raised the glass, proposing a silent toast to an old friend. In the distance, Virgil captured the moment in a symphony of light and shadow.
See what I'm saying here? Come on.
Well,
He's a beautiful writer, really beautiful.
thank you. There was a reason that I chose that chapter based on what you and I were talking about inspiration. And here we have a character, Virgil. He's a rather awkward guy standing in the square painting, and no one realizes that an entire drama is unfolding. He's observing this beautiful woman who is a very prominent character in the book, of course, and doing his art. So he's no longer awkward now,
Right.
because he's shifted into being his mastery of painting, and writing can be that way. I mean, look, we're writers because we're, at least I'll speak for myself, a little bit introverted, sometimes a little shy, and at times a little awkward, and being able to write and getting your story across to other people, and overcoming fear of rejection, fear of judgment. These are big hurdles, and they could also, dare I say, be quite therapeutic.
Yeah, it's so true, so true. I've been through a lot. So, Mike, if somebody wants to order the books, what's the best place to go for? Is it caudobooks.com, or where would you send?
Well, go right to Amazon. They're available widely on various platforms, written, Kindle, Also, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Return of the Prodigal has been turned into an audio book.
Yep.
So it's available on audio. But if you went to Amazon, Return of the Prodigal, start with that
Yeah.
and enjoy.
Michael Caudo, Caudo. If you like my podcast, click like, subscribe. I'm just branding this podcast, so I think it's Natalie Pantaleo 1111 on YouTube.
Well,
But it's gonna
look in the comments below.
look in the comments below if you want to like her. And thanks for the tip.
Yep.
Well, this is my great friend Mike, and we're going to do more creative things together. But I appreciate you coming on so much.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.